What are the top 5 most commonly seen interior issues when it comes to a home inspection report? In this video, that's exactly what we're going to talk about. Let's dive in and get going. Hey, what's up? It's me, Haley Jones. I am your local Knoxville and East Tennessee real estate agent. I help clients buy and sell property, including land. But in this case, we're obviously talking about homes because we're talking about home inspections. But that being said, sellers, a lot of these interior findings are things you can address before you even put your house on the market, and certainly before a home inspection. And buyers, these are things to be aware of that come up often on a home inspection report. So that being said, how did I get these results? My team and I combed through 150 home inspection reports from the last couple of years. Now, that being said, we took all that data and compiled it and sectioned it off. So this is part of a series. There's a roofing one, there's an exterior, there's structural, there's plumbing, there's everything. So go check that out. But this video is specifically about interior related issues. So of the 150 inspection reports, there were 306 separate findings related to interior deficiencies of some sort. So if you're like, what exactly are you talking about? So the quick summary of these 5: number 1, window operation and hardware issues. Number 2, interior door problems. Number 3, moisture and suspected microbial growth. Number 4, caulking and sealing deficiencies. And number 5, flooring defects. So that's kind of the general direction that we're going to talk about in this video. So that being said, the number 1 most common interior issue found in a home inspection report in these 150 houses was window operation and hardware problems. If you are a potential seller, most of these are completely avoidable. And why do I say that? Because buying a house is very emotional, right? And if you get a home inspection report, every line item adds a little bit of anxiety, and nobody needs that because things are anxious these days, okay? So, we want buyers to get that home inspection report and be like, oh, that's okay. But depending on how severe the things are, and then you start getting little like ticky-tacky things, which most of these I would personally consider ticky-tack. You have to decide for yourself. I'm just saying, if it's avoidable, fix it before it's even an issue. Okay, so number 1, window operation and hardware problems. The most common things were things like windows that are difficult to open or close. That's usually fixable. Windows that won't stay open because a spring is broken, there's some sort of balance issue. Now that might be a little more complicated, and that might require replacing a window. I'm not saying you need to replace your windows, but this might be something you go ahead and put on the disclosure. That the window in the second room of the 4th hall of the 5th bedroom ain't working or whatever. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't stay open. Missing or broken latches, completely fixable. That could be addressed. Broken tilt hardware. So for example, a lot of windows you might like push in and then tilt out a certain way. Sometimes you see that that's been broken. Windows that won't open in bedrooms. This is probably, to me, the thing I see the most often is when a window won't open because either it's been painted shut, which is what it is, right? Like in most cases, unless you're just going to replace the window. But that is a huge one that you see all the time. And when you see that egress issues, windows that won't open in bedrooms, it's considered a safety concern. And on the buy side, a lot of buyers are going to request that that's fixed, especially depending on what bedroom it is, etc. Condensation between panes. This one also I see all the time. And people tend to not like that. Now, here's the thing about that. Condensation between panes, that's a little more significant. That sometimes requires that, for example, the window has to be replaced. So depending on the price point of your property, if you're a seller, that might be something you want to address. Like if you're trying to get top dollar, but all your windows have condensation in between the panes, like maybe we get those replaced. Depending on your budget, depending on your price point, depending on, how quick, there's all kinds of things, right? And on the buy side, typically I have seen this repair requested, but a lot of sellers would consider this an improvement, not necessarily a repair. So just keep that in mind on the buy side. If you cannot stand condensation between window panes and the house you're looking at has condensation between the window panes and that's like a deal killer for you, then, I don't see most sellers agreeing to fix that in my experience. Now, every house is different. Every transaction is different. I'm just saying, that one's a little bit touchy on both sides. And then the other one mentioned here is broken or cracked glass. This one to me, I always advise my sellers, if you've got broken windows, to fix them. Now, there are very specific cases, like for sometimes you'll see like there's a curved window in an attic with a small crack or something. And sometimes it's just like the seller's like, it's not worth it for me to replace that window. And if it's not worth it for the seller, then it is what it is. But obviously, depending on what window it is, those kind of things, that can be a really sticking point. So in general, I would say replace that window if you're a seller. If you're a buyer, that's something you can pretty much always ask for. Some sellers will say yes, some will say no. So those are your most frequently mentioned findings when it comes to window operation and hardware problems. Latches, windows that don't open, a lot of that's fixable before a home inspector even gets there, before you even put the house on the market. Rarely do buyers go through a home and try to open the windows. You will see that every now and then. Something else I want to mention on this window situation is window screens. Usually listing photos of a house look better without screens on the window on the outside. A lot of buyers want the window screens. So if you have them for marketing purposes, or maybe you didn't even like them, maybe you don't use them, but if you have them, that's a great thing to be able to have. So that's a side note, not an inspection finding, but just a little peripheral information. Okay, number 2, interior door issues, not latching, dragging, or they're out of plumb. So doors not latching shut, this is fixable. Doors rubbing or dragging the floor, this is fixable. Doors out of plumb, this is fixable. Closet doors not catching, this is fixable. Loose or missing hardware, this is fixable. Fire rated door deficiencies, in other words, there's an inappropriate door for something that should be fire rated. So all of those things are all fixable before you list your home on the market. If you're a buyer and you're buying new construction, this right here, all of this you often find with a new construction home. So like, for example, you'll go to open the door and it just closes. It won't stay open. It's out of plumb. You try to latch the door, it won't latch. If you're a seller and you have these issues with your house, this is something easily can be fixed. And what's interesting is sometimes it can skyrocket to be like, oh my gosh, the floor is unlevel, when it's actually just the door is out of plumb. So this is one, to me, this interior door issues like should be non-existent. On the sell side, like it's completely avoidable. And then frankly, on the buy side, these are things that are fixable. So if you have a whole bunch of problems that are wrong with the house, and that are major, that would be deal killers, and you need to focus on those things, and then you're like, oh, well, let's add the door that doesn't shut, but you could easily fix it or have it fixed, then I might not add that. There's all strategy. It all depends on the transaction, but just know this is a common one, and this one to me is completely almost avoidable on the sell side. And on the buy side, most of these are super, super minor. Now, if it is new construction, then absolutely ask them to fix that, because it's a brand new house and the door should be shutting. They should be latching, all the things. But if it's a home from the 1970s and the closet door is one of those accordion things and it comes off of the track, you know what I'm talking about? Like, you know, it is what it is. That's how I feel. That's my thoughts. But that being said, if you want to add it in your inspection resolution request, we can totally do that. Totally fine. You just have to be strategic about what you do and don't ask for. And again, it always depends on the transaction. What's going on? How motivated is the seller? There's all kinds of things we think about. So I'm being very general when every real estate transaction is very personal and very specific. Okay, number 3. Ugh. This one was referenced frequently. Number 3 most often. Moisture, staining, suspected mold or microbial growth. Now, this could include dry staining on ceilings and walls. This could be ceiling staining from when you had your roof replaced 4 years ago as a seller. And there's no more leak now, but the ceiling is stained. Fix the stain. Period. Point blank. If there's anything of this that because what does that trigger? Is there a leak? Oh my gosh. If there's not an active leak, fix the stain. Because all you're doing is, if a buyer's coming through and they see this ceiling stain, oh my gosh, is there a leak? But it was fixed 4 years ago, then just fix the ceiling. And make sure it's legitimate, not one of these like, oh, we got the wrong color. You know what I'm talking about. On the buy side, obviously this is obvious. You can see the ceiling is stained. And then you can ask, but your inspector is going to have they have a moisture meter, and they can check at the time of the inspection. They put it to where the stain is and see if there is any moisture at that time. They can also tell when they go into the attic if there's something, leaking in the attic. So it could be a non-issue. But on the sell side, that's something to address, period, point blank. Like, you don't need any stains on ceilings and corners of walls. Like, if there's nothing actively happening, then finish the job. You know what I'm saying? Okay. If it was repaired, repair the whole thing. Elevated moisture readings. So anything above 16 to 19%, you see this. When there is a leak and there is something on the ceiling and they do that moisture reader and it's above 16 or 19%, then there is a moisture problem. So in that case, as a seller, hopefully that's something you caught. If you didn't catch it, then you're absolutely, a buyer is going to say, hey, like, what's the leak? Fix the leak. Suspected microbial growth, microbial-like substance, aka mold, mildew, whatever. On the sell side, this is something you would want to ideally have addressed. Sometimes you don't notice this because you've been living in the house. So for example, had an inspection report come back one time where there was mold all around like the air registers and around the wall on the air registers, but a lot of the air registers were covered up. And it ended up that the HVAC was, I think, oversized. Something was wrong with the HVAC system. But as a result, there was microbial growth around the air registers, but they didn't know because they had furniture covering up their registers. So there's a lot going on there. Okay, just want to acknowledge that. But that being said, as a seller, you may not realize this, and this might be something that a home inspector catches. And a lot of times buyers don't catch this until they see it on the home inspection report, and it's like, oh, what is that? You can also sometimes have this in the top of closets. So as a seller, check the top of your closet. See if there's something going on in there, moisture, etc. Is there a leak you didn't know about? A condensation pipe from the attic dripping into your closet. Things like that you didn't notice that, number one, caused a leak, or number two, have now resulted in a mold issue, microbial growth issue. On the buy side, if you have this concern, you can have your home inspector do a mold test. And that is beyond, on general inspection, it's going to say suspected microbial growth. The way you confirm that is with a test. That's going to be cost additional monies. They're going to swab. They're going to do all the things. They're going to take multiple samples inside and outside, depending on how big the house is. There might be one on each level. It just depends on what the house is. So that is something we see often. Mold suspected in areas of bathrooms, basements, closets, as I mentioned, and the garage. Bathrooms, you see this often. Ceilings, You see this often when people aren't turning on their vents in their bathrooms, and there's not enough circulation, so it's staying moist in there. You see this often underneath sinks, kitchen sinks, and bathroom sinks, basements, of course, basement walls, as I mentioned, closets. Moisture damage, drywall, trim, and cabinets. So similar to what I just said. If there's any kind of moisture, you want to address it. If you know about it before you list your house, you want to get those things fixed. And if not, this is an area that tends to be a major red flag for buyers, because they don't want to inherit those problems. And then also, a lot of people are sensitive to those things. So that is number 3. Number 4, this is another one of those that is completely avoidable. Number 4, caulking and sealing deficiencies in wet areas. Caulking needed at sinks, tubs, and showers. This could be fixed before you even list the house. Missing caulk at countertops and backsplashes. This could be fixed before you even list the house. Gaps at shower panels, tubs, and fixtures. Again, could be fixed. Improper sealing contributing to moisture risk. All of those are improper sealing contributing to moisture risks. This one's like pretty straightforward. I don't really see this being a deal breaker for a home purchase. As a buyer, I would say that if you're gonna ask for this, this might be the kind of, how can I put this? Let me just be real with you, okay? As a buyer, I would be hesitant about asking someone else to do this. Because when you ask for a repair, you can't necessarily mandate how it's done or who does it. And this to me is such a minor thing personally that I would rather have it done how I want it to be done, in the color of caulk or, whatever, wherever it needs to go. Because people can get real messy and real careless. And you don't want it to look trashy. Okay, so this is the kind of thing, like, as a seller, I would fix before I go on the market. As a buyer, if it comes up on an inspection report, this might be something that I have someone do or do myself after closing. Now, you could ask for a credit, but it's not like, that's going to be a very expensive repair. So just kind of keep in mind what's your strategy here, but also keep in mind, like, this is the kind of thing where I've seen it. Like, yeah, someone has gone in and caulked the tub and it looked like a hot dumpster fire, okay? And at that point, what's done is done. It's going to have to go in and be fixed anyways. So I would just be careful about, if you're requesting that, think about that. But all that being said, if you see it on a home inspection report, it comes up all the time. All right, number 5. This one's a little harder. Flooring defects, unlevel, buckled, loose, or moisture impacted floors. Now, this could be as minor as, like, for example, what would be a minor example? Just a lot of times you'll see unlevel, which will cause a structural concern. So usually in an older home, you see this, you're gonna see unlevel flooring, or you can feel it as you're walking. Sometimes you see buckling or cupping, and wood floors are like where something's like literally it's buckling. Lifted or bubbled vinyl. You can also feel like if a floor is not properly laid, you can feel like planking shifting, things like that, which goes to that loose flooring idea. So as a seller, this is a little bit more difficult because if it's a structural issue, it's not really the flooring. It's the flooring is a secondary issue related to something structural, which could be more major. If you just had your flooring redone and it was poorly laid improperly, then that might be something you might have to eat the cost of as a seller. Now, as a buyer, this is really to your tolerance. I will say, if you see, I have had one case where a home was completely renovated and there had been a leak in the bathroom. It was like a split floor plan. Okay, so one side had 2 bedrooms and a full bath. And we noticed that like there was laminate flooring missing in the bathroom. You could see the subfloor was like wet under there or had water staining. Okay, so that was going on. And then the 2 bedrooms on either side of the bathroom, the flooring was bubbled up. It was wet. It was ruined. For whatever reason, the seller at the time of renovation decided we're just gonna leave the floor that way. Well, then the home inspector goes and the floor was actually still reading as wet. What a disaster. Fix that, dear seller, please. Because first of all, it was completely renovated. So you're cutting out on the amount of money you're gonna make. Like that's basically just like money down the drain. You could have just replaced that flooring, especially when you replace all the other flooring. Like let it go. You're thinking, oh, it's wood, but if it's warped wood and it's wet, it's not good. You know, it's not a good look. Nobody wants to buy that. Or they're gonna ask for a flooring credit. If the floor is wet and warped, like as a buyer, yeah, ask for a flooring credit. Hello. Like you don't need that nonsense. And then who knows about like mold under there? Like what's happening? Who knows? What's going on in the crawl space under that? What's going on? Nobody wants any of that problem, especially for a home that's fully renovated. Now, if it's a fixer-upper and you're going to go in there and rip the floor out anyways, it doesn't matter. So again, that's when I say it's very matters on the actual transaction, what the purchase is, you know, what the price is, all of your goals, right? But if it's an obvious flooring issue, oftentimes a buyer is going to ask for that repair. And on the buy side, again, this is where you want to be careful about what the repair request is. And sometimes, you know, a credit for replacement might be a better option, or a credit for repair. So you can get it. You could get somebody, you get a flooring person to quote that repair, and then ask for that money off. Because sometimes, again, with a buckling floor, or you just want it to be done correctly, right? It's like you don't want it to be repaired and then it makes worse of a problem, or it's still not actually repaired. So just kind of keep that in mind as you're thinking about your strategy on the buy side. Again, as a seller, if you have, you know, wet carpet, you know, wet floor, any of that going on, that's, if you can, that's something you want to address beforehand, because that needs to be repaired, right? That's not as simple as like, oop, the door doesn't latch. Like, come on, that's different, right? So anyhow, that being said, that was your number 5. Now here are some of the honorable mentions when it comes to interior issues noted on a home inspection report. Stair safety issues, missing handrails, uneven risers, and loose rails. Now uneven stairs, oh my gosh, all the time. All the time. So as a buyer, this is really something that you just accept. And as a seller, you know the stairs are uneven. It is what it is. Okay, so that's one that like an inspector is going to note because it's considered a safety concern. But as a buyer, no one's putting in a new staircase. Okay, for the most part. I've had this happen one time, and it was an exterior stair. It was 2 steps going into the house from the front porch. One time. Even though there are so many uneven stairs in all the land, just know that that's common. A second one is tile or grout cracking in the bathrooms, especially. This happens often. As a seller, if you can fix it, fix it. As a buyer beware. If you ask for this repair, you don't know what you're gonna get sometimes. Loose or damaged vanities and cabinets. See this all the time. Loose doors that are like flimsy, cabinet doors that like don't open properly, drawers that are like falling out, all of those things. For the most part, that's all fixable. From the seller perspective, like fix those things. From a buyer perspective, depending on the situation, not sure that's necessarily something you want to like kill the deal over, depending on how bad it is. Cosmetic cracking and nail pops. That's just really an observation. Obviously, nail pops with newer construction homes. If you're buying new construction, this is something to make note of before your 1-year builder warranty is up. That will come in and often fix those things, depending. And then finally, radon system limitations and/or missing components. So, That's another interior issue. Radon for some people don't believe in it, some people do believe in it. I'm not saying either way. I'm just saying if you have a radon system, make sure it works properly. Make sure that that's something you can have looked at before you go on market, and make sure that it is working properly. You know, I had one case where the radon system the vent was pumping into the garage. That makes no sense. It was a 2-story plus basement, and literally the radon vent was pumping into the garage, which was in the basement. So it was sucking the radon out and putting it right back in the house. Like, come on, that's completely avoidable. And really that vent just needed to be moved to the outside, and that became a huge issue on the transaction. Because the buyer's like, that needs to be fixed. And they're like, well, the system exists, but like the system is actually not helping. So that's something that can be addressed beforehand. So anyways, those are your 5 most commonly found home inspection issues related to the interior of the home. That was window operation and hardware. Number 2 was interior door problems. Number 3, moisture and suspected microbial growth. Number 4, caulking and sealing deficiencies. And number 5, flooring defects. Now, some of these, as I mentioned, are huge issues, and some of them are not, both on the buy and the sell side. As a seller, a lot of them you can avoid, and as a buyer, you kind of want to know like these things exist, but also think about what's your strategy. What are the things that have to be done in order for you to feel comfortable to move forward on the purchase of the home? And what are things that you can address later? And as a seller, you know, again, what can you go ahead and do before you list the home for sale? Some sellers do have a home inspection before. I don't necessarily, you know, it depends on the house. I don't necessarily think you need to do that, but if your doors aren't latching and it can be easily fixable, you can call your handyman. Call your handyman and get it fixed. So it's a non-issue, right? So anyways, that being said, I hope this has been helpful. Go check out the roofing video, check out the plumbing, check out the structural components video, check out the exterior issues. So you can be prepared on the sell side for things that you can go ahead and address now, and on the buy side, things to be looking out for. And then what are major issues versus what's not so much of a big deal. Now, all this is subjective, right? Like you might think some things are much a bigger deal than what I mentioned, and that's cool. As your agent, my job is to coach you on the sell side for things that might come up, like, hey, can we go ahead and address that now? Or, hey, just know this could be an issue. But on the buy side, if you want to ask for everything on the inspection report, then I work for you on either side. So I do coach you in terms of strategy, in terms of like what could be the best outcome of all these things. But that being said, it is your purchase, right? So the goal at the end of the day is for you to move into a home that you feel comfortable with. And on the sell side, your goal is to sell a home in a way that you feel like you won. From a money perspective, from a time perspective, from all the perspectives. The goal is a successful purchase or a successful sale. And home inspection reports are a huge factor in that. So they can be highly emotional. As a seller, we want to remove their emotion. As a buyer, we want to hone in on the things that absolutely are deal breakers. Versus things that, you know, we don't necessarily want someone else fixing because we don't know how they're going to do it. You know what I'm saying? So anyways, that being said, I'm Haley Jones. I hope this has been helpful for you, and always click subscribe. If you need an agent, call me. I love to work with you. And that being said, I'll see you on the next video.